Welcome to a brand new series of Rough Science coming to you from the Spice Island of Zanzibar off the east coast of Africa. In this series, our scientists face their toughest trial yet as they take on the Indian Ocean. Over the next 6 weeks, they'll have to complete a set of marine challenges with a few bits of basic kit and a boatload of ingenuity. Our base on the high seas is a traditional fishing dhow, and our site on land is an isolated beachside workshop. It's destination paradise for rough science. Our 4 scientists are Kathy Sykes, a resourceful physicist with boundless energy. Mike Bullivant, an imaginative chemist who embraces the near impossible.
Oh my word!
Ellen Macaulay, a fearless have-a-go botanist from Missouri.
Next thing is rinse it.
Jonathan Hare, physicist, inspired inventor and artistic engineer. And me, Kate Humble, an experienced diver. I'll be going underwater to put their inventions to the ultimate test. Together we are Rough Science.
Don't think you've ever had to swim to your base before, but this is it. So, look at it.
Time to set the team their first challenge.
Right, come on. Got work to do. Because this week, we're going shipwreck hunting.
Oh, brilliant.
Kathy, this X marks the spot where a ship went down about 100 years ago. And you're going to need to build the necessary navigational tools to get us exactly there.
I hope it's a big ship, Kate.
Well, we'll see about that, because, Jonathan, you're going to have to come up with some ingenious device that means that we can explore that wreck, but without any of you ever getting into the water.
Right, OK.
Now, the best way you're going to achieve that is to do it at low tide, I think. So, Kathy, could you also help Jonathan out and work out when low tide is going to be on day 3? Meantime, Ellen and Mike, as you know, we're going to be out on a boat to go and find this shipwreck, and you do get terribly dehydrated, lots of wind and sun and everything else. Now, we have got water in tanks here, but frankly, if any of us drink it, I think it might be the last thing we ever do. So, could you combine your botanical and chemical skills to make that water drinkable? You've got 3 days, you've got everything around here that you can pillage and plunder, and of course, we've got the trusty magic trunk.
Ellen and Mike will purify the local water. Kathy must find the shipwreck and take us there when the water is shallow enough for us to see it. Jonathan will build an underwater explorer, and on day 3, I'll be in the ocean to put it to the test.
Oh, this is brilliant. This is a little TV used for a surveillance camera. So we've got the surveillance camera here. But the problem is it's meant for mains electricity, of course, so I've got to work out how to wire it in to get the 12-volt part so we can use a car battery.
Wow, can I come and show you a view?
Yeah,
Look
beautiful.
at this! So you're going to use this camera effectively as your underwater eye?
Yeah, which in principle is easy to say, but a bit harder to do because obviously water and electrics don't mix. So you have your box with the camera in, 2 motors, which we can control to make it go left, right, backwards and forwards, hopefully. And then that's one thing. And then, of course, we've got to make it go up and down as well.
It sounds like what you're going to try and build is like an underwater sort of spy plane.
Yeah, like a Captain Nemo type thing or whatever.
And presumably if you're worried about water, and obviously the deeper you go, the bigger the pressure of the water is, the more, the more robust everything has to be.
We want the distance from the top of the water to where the wreck is to be as short as possible.
OK, well, I'll go and see how Kathy's getting on with those tides, and I shall leave you to tinker.
Jonathan's remotely operated vehicle, or ROV, will film the wreck of the Great Northern, which sank off Zanzibar in 1906. The 100-metre ship is most visible in shallow water at low tide, a difference of 3 to 4 metres. And Kathy's got to find out when low tide is on day 3.
What I'm having to do is just measure the height of the water, right?
OK.
So I've stuck these 2 masts in, these big
This
sticks.
is a classic Sykes high-tech approach,
high-tech
isn't
approach,
it?
that's it. And it's like putting rulers into the sand to measure how high up the water goes. So I just measure off the knots instead of measuring off the lines.
Sure.
And so I kind of think I've approximately found high tide, which means we just have to wait for low tide.
So you might be able to tell Jonathan how much time he's got to build his incredible device.
Yes.
OK. You're not sounding that sure, but I'm going to make you stick to it. I'll see you later. Ellen and Mike are checking out the water they'll be cleaning up for our expedition. How's it looking? Oh, it doesn't look that bad, actually, no. It doesn't.
Look at those.
Oh, there are wiggly things in there, aren't there?
We can filter those off.
There's also probably some waterborne diseases and some parasites that would wreak havoc with our gut.
So, what's the solution?
Well, you can purify water with chlorine, or activated charcoal, or iodine.
There's plenty of iodine. There's a form of iodine in the sea, which we could get out. Iodine, let's go for iodine.
And brown seaweed, that's an accumulator of iodine.
What does that mean?
Well, it's like a sponge. When the plant is growing, it takes in iodine and it doesn't expel it. So the longer it lives and the more it grows, the more iodine it has as concentrated in the plant.
So now the search is on to find local seaweed that can be used to naturally purify water. Meanwhile, Kathy's mission to predict the tides is proving to be more complicated than she thought.
So, Kathy, tides, why do we have them?
Now, tides are due to the moon, which is this lemon here. So imagine the moon is out there, and it's got a gravitational pull that pulls the Earth and the oceans towards it. So the water here kind of bulges up trying to get towards the moon. Which pulls the water away from here, so you get less water here. And the water on the other side is so far away from the moon, it experiences a smaller force, and it kind of gets left behind. So imagine now that we are on the Earth, and we're going to be just here. Right now, then, we're going to be at a high tide.
Yes, because we're right by the moon.
Because we're right by the moon, that's it. As the Earth goes round, once we're there, we'll experience a low tide, around again to a high tide, to a low tide, and then back in 24 hours to another high tide.
So 4 tides every 24 hours.
That's it, except that. You see, during that time, because the moon orbits the Earth, the moon is actually shifted a little bit. So in order for the Earth to actually get back to where the high tide is, it needs to move an extra bit.
OK, so the tide times change every 24 hours?
That's it, by 50 minutes because of the moon shift.
Terribly awkward of it. You're going to have your work cut out, aren't you?
Ellen is convinced she and Mike can find the brown seaweed that can purify our water supply.
So where are you taking me?
We're going off to the East Coast because it's a little bit more protected, and there's likely to be a lot more coral, as well as a lot of the brown seaweed that we're looking for. It grows really well with the coral.
Are we nearly there?
We've got a little ways to go.
Kathy is still measuring the water level on her tide gauge. Jonathan is getting ahead with his underwater explorer.
This is a good place.
Is this what we're looking for?
Yeah, we're looking for this brown tropical seaweed.
So how much do we need to collect today?
This basketful.
Back at the workshop, Jonathan has hit on a novel way of driving the propellers without wires to stop seawater getting into the motor.
Wow, look, no hands, as it were.
I've got a disc with magnets on. And you imagine that this is the box.
Right.
So this is the wall of the box. All this is nice and waterproof.
OK.
When this turns, it drags those magnets round, and you see the propeller move.
God, I had no idea that a magnetic field would be able to travel through a piece of plastic.
Yeah. No problems.
Are you going to use this drill as your motor?
Yeah, I mean, I can take it apart and get rid of all the heavy battery and have that up the top and have cables going in.
OK.
So it won't be too heavy.
Jonathan's convinced his magnets can help keep the motor for his ROV watertight, while Kathy is figuring out the tides with her sticks.
I've measured along here so that I've got actual really small differences, and I measure them every kind of 15 minutes, and I think it's just about low tide now. Now, I won't know for sure until I see the water go back up again, so I can't tell anybody until tomorrow what I really think the tides are.
So we still don't know when low tide is on day 3, but at least Mike and Ellen have had a good day gathering seaweed.
Why are you now festooning this stinky stuff all over our workshop?
Well, tomorrow we've got to burn this and reduce it to ashes.
OK.
And that'll be a faster process if it's dry.
I mean, is it going to be absolutely full of iodine?
It's brown seaweed, and that's the stuff that in the temperate zone is collected to get iodine out of it.
OK.
However, it's not the same species. So it's the same group, but not the exact kind.
don't you just hate botanists, Mike? What do you think?
I'm always confident.
You're going to hang up baskets and baskets of seaweed and then tomorrow make a big smelly fire.
Yep.
Good. That's something to look forward to. Have fun.
One day down, 2 to go, and there's finally an answer on what time the team need to set out to find the wreck of the Great Northern.
Well, I stayed up last night measuring the tide around every 15 minutes just to make sure it really was going back up again. And then I found out that it was actually changing round about 6 o'clock, 5:45, 6 o'clock. So that's when it was low tide. So this morning, it's half a day later. So it's 25 minutes further on. So instead of 6-ish, it's 6:25, the tide this morning. But that means tomorrow, because it's a whole cycle later, it's a whole day later, it's going to be an extra 50 minutes from 6:25. So that takes us to 7:15. So that's when it should be tomorrow, which is a really early start.
That means a 3-day challenge has now to be done in 2. It's not what the rest of the team are expecting.
So, beginning of day 2. Yesterday was a pretty good day. It was
great.
I think.
Really
yeah.
good.
I think Kathy's got some news.
Indeed.
Have you?
The tide tomorrow, in the evening, is 7:25, which is too late for us to go. So
It'll be dark.
The only
'Cause there's
tide
no
we
light.
can go for
Yeah.
is between 7 and 7:15 in the morning.
Oh, Kathy, check
7
your
and
maths.
7:15. Well, hang on. Let's just check before we all panic. Let's just check whether she's right, because I've got a letter here from the Tanzanian Harbours Authority, and they ought to know. They say, "Dear Rough Science, we can confirm that the low tide for Zanzibar tomorrow in daylight hours is at 07:08. So you are, unfortunately, pretty much spot on. That means you basically don't have tomorrow to build. You only have today. You have to finish today. What do you think, Jonathan? I mean, you've probably got the most to do, have you?
I've got loads to do.
Okay.
I'll try my best.
With only 8 hours of daylight left, Jonathan has an enormous task ahead of him.
Well, the thing is that there's definitely a whole day's work here to get the motors working, the camera. And what I really wanted to do was put it in some water and test to see if it doesn't leak. But I reckon what's going to happen is we're going to get it all together, get it working, and we'll have to test it doing it.
But getting the ROV anywhere near the shipwreck is down to Kathy.
I mean, just looking at this map, what I don't understand is, OK, you've got a nice, neat X marking your shipwreck, but there's not going to be one of those out at sea. Plus, you're trying to find something that isn't actually visible anyway. So how on earth are you going to begin?
It is going to be hard, I think. The thing is, there are some things on land that I hope we're going to be able to see from the ocean.
OK.
So, for instance, there are radio masts, and there's a clock tower that we should certainly be able to see, and another clock tower there. We're going to use those things to kind of line ourselves up, make sure that we're in the right position relative to them in order to fix where we are. And then what I'm going to do is, here on land, I'm going to measure lots of angles.
Yeah.
And then once we get out to sea, I should have all the information I need. So we've just got to take a few simple measures in order to be able to locate, well, just make sure that when we get to the right place, we're there.
Actually there. So is this the extraction process going on here?
This is the start of it, yeah. We want the salts out of here, the salts that the seaweeds absorb from the sea.
Is the iodine one of those salts,
It is,
basically?
yeah.
So how do you isolate the iodine from the other stuff?
Well, they all dissolve to different extents. Like some things are more dissolved more in water than others, and it's the same with the salts. Luckily, the potassium iodide that we want to make the iodine is very soluble in the water.
But are you fairly confident whether this might have iodine in it or not?
It's too early.
No idea. No idea.
Not yet.
So all this could be to no avail.
Yeah.
Mike can't purify our water supply if he doesn't have any iodine. Time is slipping away and all the scientists are hard at work. Kathy has used the map to measure an angle from the workshop. She's made a prototype to test her theory.
Well, it's just not as simple as I thought it was. I've made this angle to be 25 degrees, which is just the angle between two of the reference points on the land. So if I put this kind of at my eye, I ought to be able to measure off 25 degrees. But sticking something really sharp close to my eye on a boat would be really stupid. And also, you know, if you hold it some distance away, it's very different from if you hold it really close up. So I'm just wondering whether I need to kind of cut this and try to hold it maybe just a few centimetres from my eye every time. It's just going to be a lot harder than I thought.
So it's back to the drawing board for Kathy, and it's already halfway through the day. But Mike's iodine extraction process has moved on a stage, and he's ready to strain off the salts.
Just a bit of cotton wool in there as a physical barrier. It's only the salts we want, the salts that were in the seaweed. And this is going to separate the salts that we want from all of the muck in here that we don't want. So what should pass through the cotton wool is a clear liquid. It may be coloured yellow. I'm happy, look at that. But I've still got to play around with this to concentrate the potassium iodide. And then I play with the potassium iodide to produce the iodine.
Progress, although it looks like there's some way to go to get the iodine for our sea voyage. Next door, Jonathan's ROV that will film the shipwreck is starting to take shape.
So come on then, talk me through it. How's it all going to work?
OK, well, these are the drain pipes, and we put some ends on them, which you can screw on.
Yeah.
And then we can put the motors in here.
Right, so those are going to be the motors driving the propellers?
Yeah, that's right.
And is it working?
Yeah, I'll show you. I don't think the water's going to stop it, but it's the
And you're going to have the identical setup on this side?
Yeah, so they're both on, it should go forward.
Yeah.
And then one on, it will go one way, another one will go the other way.
And I suppose the other thing to think about is buoyancy, because you have to be able to get it effectively neutrally buoyant, don't you? So that it can sit in the water wherever you want it. It doesn't just plummet.
I think it's going to float,
right.
So we're going to have to add weight to it.
Yeah.
So there's lots of places where you can add weight. And just keep on adding more weight until it just doesn't float or sink, you know,
right.
just hangs there.
Right.
And then we've got to add a way to make it go up and down as well. If I put a tyre in the tube round here and pump it up from a tube from above, and as it inflates, it will bring it up. And as you take out the air, it will make it go down.
Oh,
if you make it slightly heavier.
Brilliant idea.
But I haven't even thought about that yet properly. I mean, yeah.
Okay. So the up and down weighting system for the ROV is still a long way off. But Ellen's found a rough science way of doing the classic test for iodine.
We've got cassava to test to see if we have iodine. Do you have iodine?
No, not yet.
How's it coming?
Come on, it's 2/3 of the way through day 2. It's coming along all right.
Yeah?
Yeah, so what's with the cassava? What do we do?
Okay, because we can't prove the water is pure just by looking at it, we can prove that you've got iodine by putting it directly on this plant. And so if it turns black on here, it's definitely iodine. And if it doesn't, if it stays the brown-orange, then we don't have it.
There's only 3 hours left till sundown, and we're due to leave at the crack of dawn to find the shipwreck tomorrow. Kathy's having another go at making a navigational tool. She's measured 3 angles from the workshop and has added some nails. Ellen's helping Jonathan by making floats for his cables, and Mike's concentrating his seaweed brew.
We can see a couple of islands.
Yeah.
So I've just made this thing to kind of experiment with.
Did you spend long on this?
I've spent ages on this, Kate. I can't believe how long it's taken. I'm feeling really depressed.
Let me try.
You line it up between those two.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
And then you shift your eye slightly over to the island over there, to the far side of the island.
Yeah.
It ought to match up.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay, it's all becoming clear. You've measured the angles off the map and effectively translated those angles onto here, or transferred those angles onto here. And if, by sitting here, you look and those 2 points match up, so that's your first thing, and that's 17 degrees on to your second thing. Yeah. If the two match up, you know you're in the right spot.
Indeed. No, that's it.
Oh, OK. That's quite clever for a bit of plywood and a lot of nails.
For 8 hours, Mike has been dry roasting, boiling, straining and reducing his seaweed and water mixture. Now he's using sulfuric acid to convert the potassium iodide into iodine.
I'm going to introduce concentrated battery acid down this tube here, because that should contain potassium iodide. And I'm going to try and convert the potassium iodide into iodine by adding acid to it. And what we should get is iodine vapour forming. Now, inside here is a cold finger. It's just a test tube that's inserted in there. And inside the test tube is just ice, water, and a drop of salt. So it's just creating a cold surface on which the iodine vapour can solidify out. And iodine is one of those chemicals that sublimes. It goes straight from a vapour to a solid. There's no liquid phase. Let's see if anything happens when I add the acid to the amber solution. Oh, we've got some purple fumes. Recognise that's iodine. But there's definitely, we've got iodine there, look at it. That's iodine. I just think this stuff was out in the sea 2 days ago, and Alan and I have extracted it.
But will the vapour turn to solids on the cold finger?
We've got some solid. It's not beautiful needle-shaped crystals, which is what I was hoping for, but there's some solid iodine solidified out on that cold finger. So all we have to do now is to make some, just try and dissolve some of this iodine in water. Let's take this to Ellen and test it on the cassava while we've still got enough light.
This is the kind of final proof, is it, Ellen?
Right.
How's this going to work?
Well, basically, when you want to purify water, you take iodine and you put it in the water, and it kills basically everything that'll hurt you.
Okay.
The other thing, the way you can prove it's iodine, is by putting it on something that's a not starch and something that is a starch, like this cassava.
Okay.
So if you put it, when we put it on the papaya, go ahead, Mike, we expect it to stay this browny orange color. You can't even tell.
No.
Now, put it on this cassava. If it is iodine, it will turn a black purple.
Okay.
But let's give it a try.
Oh, yeah, look, it's definitely beginning to turn, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I think we can pronounce it a success. Congratulations to both of you.
Amazing.
So we have clean drinking water for our expedition. It's 20 minutes before sunset. How confident is Kathy that she'll find the shipwreck tomorrow?
Well, I've made my device again, and I've made it bigger, and I've been ever so careful to make it really accurate. And some of the angles just don't really seem to work. So, I'm hoping it's just because as the islands kind of change shape as the tide raises and lowers, and so, of course, the angle changes a bit. But I'm a bit worried. Really. I'll do my best. But I wish it worked better than this.
Oh, are those my legs?
I'm afraid they are.
Horrid. Those mosquito bites. Fantastic. The camera's working.
The camera's working, it's in its box, it's waterproofed, cross fingers.
Yeah.
The motors aren't in yet, but all the cables and everything are glued in and should be sealed, so I'm just going to put the hours in to finish it off.
The sun has officially just dipped into the ocean, and we have got a 5:30 start tomorrow.
And the thing that bothers me is that I can't test it before going out. There's no time.
So its very first test is also going to be its maiden voyage.
Yeah.
Quite nerve-wracking. Feeling relatively confident?
I just got to finish it off. I think so. Yeah, cross fingers. I think so. It should all work. Even if I have to coat the whole thing in glue so it's all watertight, which is what I might do actually. Use up all the glue.
Here in the morning, totally just glued to it. Well, Jonathan, good luck, and see you in the morning.
Jonathan's underwater explorer is due to go into action in the ocean in less than 12 hours' time. Daybreak on day 3. Jonathan worked till midnight and the team have had 5 hours sleep. He's finished making his ROV, but none of us have seen it work. This morning, Kathy has taken over from our dhow captain, Raphael, as navigator. We're all relying on her to take us to the shipwreck before the tide rises.
Now, that island just there, Barry, is that one over there.
Right.
And because we have actually made it at low tide,
yes,
and I think I was right, that thing just there is a sandbank, and we can see a sandbank. So that's my biggest clue, if we just head straight to that.
Okay.
In the meantime, though, you can see the lighthouse down there.
Yep.
Yeah, so we can take readings once we're there, and also back to the clockhouse here.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Raphael, if we just head towards the right-hand side of that sandbank... Okay. That's it. Thank you. This may be easier than I thought it was going to be. Okay, now I can just see the clock tower and the radio mast. I can't see the other clock tower easily, so if I just line that one up. Right, that's pretty close. I think we need to go a little bit further that way.
Which way? A little bit that way?
A little bit further that way. Could people just clear this side of the boat briefly and then I'll do my sighting? Sorry. Yep. Right, the radio mast is right where it should be. The lighthouse is about where it should be. No, I say that. It's not as accurate as I'd like it to be, really, but I think this is as good a place as any, really, to try.
Do you want me to get in and have a quick look for you?
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right.
Thank you.
OK.
Can you see anything?
There's bits of coral. Let me try a little bit further out, but it doesn't look like anything right here.
No sign?
Nothing here.
We've been at sea for 40 minutes and the tide is rising fast.
The thing is, we've moved quite a long way, and this looks almost exactly the same. So I don't think we've got a hope of finding it. This isn't accurate enough. So if the coral's nice, should we just get down there and look at the coral?
Maestro with the ROV think?
Yeah, let's put it in and find out. Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, everybody.
Hey, Kathy, this doesn't always work out. Sorry.
While Kathy didn't get us to the exact spot, she was within 400 metres of the wreck. But will the ROV be able to film the coral reef and marine life beneath the dhow before the tide gets too high? This is the moment of truth.
If you can get down in the water, we'll lower it down to you. It should float, and then we'll add weight until it just sinks. And so if it sinks, we'll just put a little bit of air in there. That will inflate and bring it up.
OK. Time for me to test Jonathan's nautical spy plane in the Indian Ocean. Can it be driven remotely and send back underwater pictures to our dhow?
Whoa, look at that. That's top heavy, is it? It's pretty much.
That looks pretty.
Oh, look at the pictures.
Wow.
Can you see?
Wow. Is it working? Yes!
Beautiful.
Try the motors, Jonathan.
I'll try them out. I don't know which way it's going to go, but... Stuttering. OK, let's see. Yeah, that one's fine. Can you do the other pair? I think the water's buckling because it's wet, and so it's not letting that move so freely. At the moment, it's floating. Once we've got this so it's just under the water, I reckon it'll work. OK, so let's start loading up some weights. Oh, yeah, that's good enough.
Yeah.
It's got the weight, hasn't it? Do you want to let out the air and see if it disappears?
I'm holding on to it at the moment because it's just tipping to one side. It's overweight on the right-hand side.
We need more weight, do we? Definitely got pictures still. We've got beautiful pictures. Coral, fish, Kate's feet, flippers. What happens if you let go of it, Kate? Does it just sink? OK, just let it a little bit out and see. Let's see if it just goes down. Oh, it is going down. Mike, can you...
Down here, I can keep a close eye on its progress. The propellers are flying around, the weighting system is keeping it horizontal, and it's watertight.
This is turning, look. See everything going round.
Amazing! Did you see anything up here?
Yeah, loads.
Fish, coral, everything.
Right, can I come in?
Yeah.
Because I know what I'm looking forward to. Oh, my word, it's brown. Is that normal?
It's clean.
To all of you. Thank you.
Yes.
Should we do another rough science? Yes. Join us next time.
Next week, we mount a rescue mission in the dark. For a free magazine about all Open University programmes, call 0870 900 9581 or go to open2.net, where you'll also find more about this week's challenges.